Now let's talk a little bit about common mistakes that we see with ductless heat pump installations. There are some real common things. Again, I mentioned earlier, maybe the most common thing is not having proper expectations or homeowner education, but there are some other things we see. The outdoor unit not being secured or elevated in areas of snow and not being level are really common problems. And it's a good way to make sure that you fail a quality assurance site visit. So take care of that. It will improve the longevity of the equipment and make sure that it works correctly. The second big problem is lack of adequate line set protection. So what you see here, it is insulated, which is great, but this is not a UV-proof insulation. So it either needs to be covered with a tape or some sort of sealant or hidden under a line set cover. That is really critical. Now, in this particular case, this is an outdoor unit, and you see there's a lot of different refrigerant lines. This is not your standard displacement, one indoor head, one outdoor head, and so that's probably why this installer did not use line set. He or she had too many refrigerant lines running simultaneously. So in this case, having a sealant, using the correct line set insulation, or putting a UV wrap over it would be preferred. Again, these other mistakes, that poor homeowner education that I mentioned, not having good clearance around the device, really having aesthetically unappealing installations, and in general, not installing the heads level on the interior. We see these on a pretty regular basis, and it's usually because people are moving quickly and trying to get that best price for the homeowner. But if you have to come back to fix the job, you didn't give them the best price. So here's going to go through some examples of some poorly installed outdoor units and then some poorly installed indoor units. So here, clearly they did not put a pad on compacted ground. You can actually see they put this on these concrete blocks and it's sinking into the earth. This is not a long-term good solution. It is also not earthquake strapped, and that insulation does not appear to be covered either. So this is really failing on several different levels. It may work for a while, but over time, this device is going to be a challenge to live up to its 10 to 20 year life. Here we have another one. It's installed outdoor, but you can see this is a picture taken in February, so there's some defrost happening, and the defrost is running right onto a walkway where people are likely to walk. And considering that this is happening in February, is a good chance that could freeze. It also does not appear to be very level. So again, you could risk the longevity of the equipment, and you could cause a slipping hazard here. Finally, it doesn't appear that the penetration through the wall has been adequately weather sealed. You can probably guess what's going wrong here. We see refrigerant lines. Now, it has the good insulation on it that has UV protection, but it's not covering all of the line set. If it doesn't cover that line set, you could either get condensation on it, and you're certainly going to get reduced performance. This needs to be insulated so that if you're taking heat from outdoors and moving it inside or moving cool inside, you want to make sure it's actually going to get the job done and not lose a lot of that heat along its journey. And we do that by making sure they're properly insulated. I kind of hinted at this earlier, but one of the tricks is to push back the insulation when you're making the connections and then let it kind of accordion back out to cover the entire line set. In this case, it was simply trimmed back too far to make it easier for the connections, but now we're going to have a poor performance over the long term. Now let's take a look at some poorly installed indoor units. Now this device may actually work well, and I'm very glad that they used a line set height on the inside, because where they had to come through was not directly behind the head. But they've left this ugly hole above the bottle on the right. It's not sealed and it's not covered. And they actually make elbows or turns for line set hide that would have done a terrific job to cover that. So this was a matter of just not having the appropriate piece of line set hide on hand. But that's an easy to fix problem. But let me ask you, if this homeowner was trying to show their neighbor your installation, what are the odds this will lead to a referral? Probably not very high. So making sure you have a professional looking install on top of a level install is going to be critical. Here we have a head that is neither high on the wall nor is it level. So this is really just not going to move the air as it's designed. If a homeowner doesn't have an option for a high on the wall head, they actually make what are called floor mounted units, which is a bit of a misnomer. It's actually mounted on the wall, but it's just at the level of the floor. And the difference is it pushes the air up into the room instead of down into the room. So it will work, and it will work very well. But we only really recommend those for the scenario where you can't put a head high on the wall. So this is a good example of probably the wrong piece of equipment was selected here, and it was not installed level. And that doesn't just happen once. It happens over and over again. Here we have another instance. It's neither level nor is it high on the wall. A floor-mounted unit would have been the right choice in this case.